Okay, good morning, everyone. Kayla here from Out of the Fog, the Trauma Network, produced by KR Country Coaching. And today we have Caitlin Greenglass, who is joining us from USA, isn't it, Caitlin?
New Hampshire, USA.
New Hampshire. Wonderful. All right, guys. So obviously viewer discretion is advised. And if at any time you do feel triggered or you're someone who's battling with going through hard times, then please do reach out to an organization or a counselor or a friend that you may have. I'm sure as well, Caitlin, if you don't mind, at the end of the broadcast, feel free to go onto the Trauma Network and share it onto your page. And also, just to quote any numbers that you might be aware of over there in the US, I know that there is a number that you can text. I remember you mentioning it last time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But for here in Australia, we have Lifeline, which is 13 11 14, and Beyond Blue, which is 1300 224 636, and the men's line, which is 1300 789 978. All right, Caitlin, if you want to introduce yourself for us.
Certainly. So I'm Caitlin Greenglass. I am 55 years old, and I am married to my wonderful wife, Shelley. We live way out in the country of New Hampshire. I am a project manager for a Fortune 500 company. At home, we have one cat, two German Shepherds, one rambunctious, stubborn bulldog. I also am the owner of the Healing Light NH. I am a spiritual healer. I'm a Reiki master. I do tarot card readings. And I consider myself definitely someone who is, my goal is to heal as well as, take care of those with spiritual needs as well.
Yeah, amazing. So what led you onto this path, Caitlin, and the path of healing?
I was kind of forced into it in a way. I have been, I mean, I've had my trauma with me forever. It started when I was a little girl, when I was around the age of 5. But in 2014, I was with my ex-girlfriend, and I always tell my significant others about my trauma, my rape and my abuse. And she was the first one. Not that the others weren't supportive, that's not what I'm saying, but she was the first one to tell me, because I started sobbing and telling her about it, to ask me if I had ever thought about going to therapy.
Mm.
And this hit me like a lightning bolt. And I realized that I have been struggling so long, I just could not hold back anymore. And I decided to get the help I needed. And I know that I had to get it out of me. I didn't think about healing right away as the goal. I know that may sound odd to a lot of people. It's not like I had an awareness that, okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to heal from it. No, what I was dealing more with was I have been suicidal, uh, severely depressed, anxious, and it was time. It was fine. It was time to bring this out in the open and deal with it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you had been, I don't want to say holding on, but what you had been through, it had effects with you for a very, very long time until you, I suppose, made a conscious choice to delve into, more of the healing realms. How have you maneuvered? Firstly, if you don't mind, if we discuss a little bit about your trauma.
Sure.
And when this actually started. And I know that part of your purpose driven expression, and obviously speaking out about this is making others aware of what happens with abused victims and the signs. Obviously we're speaking about sexual abuse today.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, just perhaps delving into that a little bit with me.
Sure. Absolutely. So at the around the age of 5, now with trauma survivors, one thing is that we don't always have exact memories. I mean, nobody really does. I mean, I'm sure that people cannot recall exactly what they had for lunch at the exact time 6 years ago, on December 22nd. But with trauma survivors, it's really hard to pinpoint exact dates. When I say I'm around 5, it was about the age of 5. And back then, so I'm 55, and back then, kids were just you just played out back, by yourself. There was no
Mm.
real parental supervision. Right? So I remember being out back, and the next door boy, if I had to guess, I'd probably say he was in his late teens, early 20s, lured me into the house, and he raped me. And that happened at least twice. I don't know if it happened more than that. And it took me a long time through therapy, and a lot of it was denial to move from being molested to being a victim of childhood rape, because that's exactly
Mhm.
what he did. Um, and then from there, uh, when I was from the age of around 9 or 10 up into the age of 14, I was sexually assaulted repeatedly and molested by my stepfather. And there was also one time when I went to go visit my father in Maine, because we would spend the summers with him because my mother and my father are divorced. And the next door, one of the neighborhood boys there molested me in the back of a pickup truck.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a lot. And there have been other instances with men when I was younger, teenager, up until one point I was in my 30s, where men have tried to grope me or, made moves on me or whatever. So, and plus I also, with my mother and my abuser, my mother's second husband, he's an alcoholic and an angry alcoholic. So there was a lot of verbal abuse I witnessed, and emotional abuse to my mother. So I grew up with that, and yeah, so it
Wow.
all of that combined, just
Yeah.
absolutely traumatic.
Yeah. Firstly, I want to really recognize your courage in both living through this but being able to speak about it.
Thank you.
Um, it takes a lot. Yeah, it takes a lot. So whilst you're maneuvering, trying to, I suppose, make sense
Mm,
of, these types of, forceful, heinous, really activities. And the scary thing, I think, is that it goes on so often. And it goes on with many people that are completely unaware. Um, how did this affect? Now, obviously, you know, some of the questions that I ask sometimes, it's only because I would really like to allow people who have not experienced things like this to get sort of a hindsight into what someone goes through. And I don't like to call us victims, I like to call us survivors.
that's
You know,
right.
yeah, because we see the other end of these things. Tell me how this affected you throughout growing up. the feelings around it. And I suppose, I know that there is a lot of anger, resentment, the feelings of someone, being able to pinpoint that this was going on and why it wasn't the case.
Right. So, you make a good point. It does unfortunately go on more often than we want to admit. Um,
Mm,
and I don't ever want to be in this club, and I don't want anyone to be in this club. But when I say that you're not alone, if anyone's listening out there, you're not alone. I thought I was alone. I thought it just was just me for
mm,
years. And then you talk to other survivors, and you're right, we are survivors, and you hear their stories, and they sound so similar. All of them do.
mm,
So in terms of how it affected me, your brain, I've learned, gets altered when you have trauma.
mm,
Um, it causes an imbalance, in your brain. And for me, I had night terrors, nightmares. I remember having headaches. I would disassociate. That's when you just completely like, leave your body. I was when I was a little bit older, when I was getting close to being, my teen years, I started acting out. Um, I I talked back to my mother, and but yeah, the nightmares and all that, and it's not for me even just so much the um, the assault and the abuse. It's when I first talked to my first therapist, and I told her what happened with my stepfather. I didn't know that that was abuse, some of it.
mm,
So in my mind, I think a lot of people do this. You think, oh, it wasn't this. So, it wasn't, abuse because it wasn't this severe or it wasn't that. It was, and it was assault.
mm,
Now, to that end, fast forward a little bit to now, I have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, bipolar
mm.
2, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and I also have ADHD.
Yeah.
And all of these, when I've talked to all my psychiatrists and my therapists, and I've had more than one, tell me
Mm,
that this is all a result of childhood trauma,
mhm.
from repeated childhood trauma.
Yeah.
So that's how it has affected me. It wrecked my life. Um, it wrecked my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. When you speak about going through the phases of, I suppose, if you want to say not making excuses, but what they refer to this as, I'm a psychological sciences student because I've been very passionate about understanding more about what happens through trauma, being a trauma
Mm,
survivor myself. And what they refer to it as is cognitive dissidence, where we start to make exceptions or we start to rationalize things that happen in order for the brain to actually try to make sense of it. Because these things, when they happen and the traumas that happen, and the way that the brain starts, the neurons start to fire and wire in the brain, and how we start to try to help ourselves, it really is. It's a fight or flight mechanism to try and help us get through the really, really bad, terrible parts of humanity, I suppose. Um,
yes.
Caitlin, did you ever, at this time, especially being that young as well, as you say, the next door neighbor, and then the repeated assaults that went on, I can only imagine, one, how that affected you, and secondly, were there times where you did try to perhaps speak to, your mum, or try to, tell someone?
It's interesting that you say that because with the first boy, when I was around 5, he told me not to tell my mother. And I grew up with adults. We're adults. You listen to adults. You do what they tell you without question.
Mm,
And so I didn't because I was told not to by an adult.
mm,
Now, um, with the boy in Maine, he never said not to tell. But I think that I was so conditioned. I didn't know what normal was. And
mm,
with my with my stepfather, there was he didn't say that either. Don't tell your mother. But it was something that I didn't realize was not was not normal. I don't it's not normal, but I don't know how to describe it.
yeah,
I just did not think about telling my mother when I was that young. I did tell a couple of my friends what happened. Um, but it didn't occur to me. And part of the reason too is back then they taught us a lot about stranger danger. I don't know what it was like
mm,
in Australia, but in my country, being a Gen X kid, we had police come in and talk about stranger danger, about being taken off the street, about strangers who would try to lure you in. Do you want to see my puppy or candy? No one ever said this can be someone who is your stepfather, your father, your coach, someone
yeah,
who's a friend of the family, someone who's a relative, a sibling. No one ever taught us about that.
mm,
So I think in my mind, it didn't even it didn't even occur to me at the
mm,
time.
yeah,
And it wasn't until I think I turned 51 or 52 before I told my mother. I
wow,
didn't tell my siblings until I was in my 40s. That's how deep this goes. It's such a sense of shame on
mm,
on the survivor's part. It shouldn't
mm,
be, but it is. And you just don't know the depths of how horrible it was until someone helps walk you through your trauma.
yeah,
And then it hits you like a ton of bricks how awful it was. There
mm,
were signs, I'm sure,
mm,
that I just don't think that people knew enough to pick up on. They just not a lot was known, you
mm,
know. I don't know how it is today, but I would imagine that I don't think that teachers or people had trainings as to what to recognize. So,
mm,
but
yeah,
to me, I think there were signs, but
mm,
I wasn't a bully. I wasn't a violent kid. I was compliant and I was quiet, too quiet,
yes.
I think, but.
Yeah. And I think that is often, when I see this type of trauma, and when I listen to these types of things, and my own experiences too, I think that one of the very common things that we find in survival of this type of abuse is it kind of follows the same type of pattern in character, where you're often someone who is very much, do as I say, not as I do, when it comes to,
Mm,
the adults around you. I think there's also, in every child, there is an innocence, and we like to believe the best in people. And I think that this is really where a lot of the type of risk factor can come in, and as
mm,
you say, back then, and it makes complete sense with the stranger danger and these types of things. What I have seen over the years, and here in Australia anyway, we have billboards, that are in the front of schools, where there was a young boy that was taken many years back, and they still do rides for him, etc. And he has never been found. And now we have advertisements on TV, where it's talking about people basically that are close to you at home, and if this is going on, and signs like that to kind of look out for. So there is definitely more of a speaking out, I suppose. And I hope that it's something that starts to get more momentum as time goes on, especially the more that we have, people such as yourself speaking out, Caitlin, and driving change like this. What are the types of, for anyone that's a parent, and that's myself included, what are the sorts of signs that you are looking for?
Well, for some kids, if they are becoming interested in sex at a very young age, I suppose is one sign. I mean, with physical abuse, you look for bruises or kids who act timid. But for me, I was at times, like in school, I was extremely, extremely quiet, but also a tremendous people pleaser.
Mm,
Um, like right up front with the teacher. Um, but I didn't have a lot of friends. I kind of kept to myself. I was bullied. There were some girls in elementary school who bullied me for not taking a bath. And the reason why I didn't want to take a bath was because the bath is where a lot of my abuse happened. And
wow.
so I think, in my childhood mind, if I didn't have a bath, then that that wouldn't happen. But unfortunately, kids pick up on that. But you know, no teachers, I guess, either noticed or I mean, I'm not going to blame teachers entirely, but I
Mm,
think what they're looking for are the loud, obnoxious kids, or they're looking for obvious signs.
mm,
Um, it's I felt like I was crawling into myself, or I would daydream or drift off and not pay attention.
mm,
Um, when no teacher ever thought to pull me aside and just say, "Hey, how's it going at home?" Or, how's your mom and dad? And, I remember maybe one teacher parent conference they went to, but my mother was not active in my school life, that was just absent, you know?
mm,
Yeah. Um,
yeah.
so I don't know if that's helpful, but I know, and then as I got older, um, I would run away a lot.
Mm,
This is why it blows my mind that my mother didn't pick up on this. I ran away a lot. I rebelled against her, the nightmares. I mean, I actually sleepwalked. I remember when I was younger, I remember running out of our apartment down the stairs into the street, thinking that monsters were chasing me.
yeah.
And the same thing with other nightmares that I had. There was always a monster chasing me, and just nobody ever picked up on it.
Mm, yeah.
So,
Wow. Oh man, this is, yeah. You know, the other thing is what I found is the people that go through this, and then, that confusion that happens. And so it's a repetitive thing for the next person. And by that, I mean survivors who then
mm,
don't understand, and then they repeat it. But Caitlin, um, when you talk about telling your siblings, Had any of them been through the same thing, or were you the person that was the one, I suppose, that had been through this?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I lost you. Did you freeze?
No, 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 no. I'm
Okay. Sorry.
yeah. So I was just wondering. No, that's okay. I was just wondering if when you told your siblings, if this was a common thing that had occurred, or if it was just you. If it's something that you can't answer, please.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no, no. It was just me. And uh my siblings have not been supportive. Uh one has was seemed supportive, but there is no more to talk about it. I've actually
Mm,
been ostracized from my family because of it. I have not spoken to my mother in about five years. I cut her out of my life. I blocked everybody on social media as well, except for my sister. Um, but when you speak out, and this can happen, when you start telling the truth, just be prepared if anyone's listening who you haven't done this yet, that you have to be prepared that people are not going to believe you. Or I had that, and I also had someone who dismissed it, said it was less than it was because it was just inappropriate touching. That's what I got from one sibling.
mm,
And I was also told, be careful. This is your father that you're speaking about. And I said, no, he's not my father. He did not earn the right to call himself my father or my stepfather or anything. To me, he is it. That's what I
mm,
refer to him as, is it. Um, and you'll have some people who will say, that was so long ago, like, can't you get over it or put it behind you?
mm.
Um, and those are the people that you don't you don't want to be in your life. You
Yeah.
want those who've I've also experienced who've been loving and supportive,
Mm,
who believe you. Um, yeah,
yeah.
it's
100%.
sad.
It is very sad. And I
That's why
think,
a lot of people don't.
carry on, Caitlin. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that this is why a lot of survivors don't speak out, is
Mm,
because they're not believed, or it's downgraded. Well, you weren't raped, or you weren't this, or it wasn't that, and it was just something minor that happened.
mm,
So a lot of us don't speak out
yeah.
because of
And I
that.
think that it's a huge way to act as a trigger, and it adds to even more trauma, you know, when
It
it's
does. It does.
as you say, when it's played down or dismissed. Or another thing is that I hear. Another thing that I hear is that people who are close to survivors that go through this and later on find out, the dismissive side is the side that has suffered the guilt of sitting back and going, I can't believe that this happened on my watch. And so it's that thing of trying to dissipate or shut it down because it just seems, so surreal. But I think in
Mm.
the back of that person's mind, no matter, it's always going to play out, and it's always going to be there. Um, so, Caitlin, when did you first seek help with? I know you've spoken of a counselor. When was that something that, or how was that something that you turned to?
Well, I am very fortunate. So, it's interesting. It's not actually the first time I sought help. I in when I was in community college working on my associate's degree, our my psychology one of my psychology professors also did did counseling as well. I mean, so one time I went into his office and I knocked at his door and I don't know, I just felt like compelled to just talk about something. And he asked me what what I wanted, and I said, I'm afraid. He said, and what are you afraid of? I said, I'm afraid of life. And even I don't know, I don't even know what that I meant by that back then, but I think I was just afraid of everything.
Mm,
I was so wrecked, but it wasn't, I didn't continue because I got scared off,
mm,
was not ready. I don't know if you can ever be 100% ready, but I was definitely not. So I am very fortunate uh, that my company that I work for is a firm believer that mental health is just as important as your physical health, and
yeah.
actually, it's even more important because your mental health does affect your physical health, and they
Mm,
have a very robust mental health um, insurance plan. Um, so it was, I think it back then they were giving like 15, 15 counseling sessions for free, and then like the rest of it would be a copay of like $15.
mm.
Now that I'm working, they changed it completely a few years back, and it's completely free. My company pays for it. I don't pay for any co-pays for any psychiatric sessions because I see a psychiatrist and I see a therapist.
Yeah.
Uh, those are completely free, and my psych meds are completely free.
Wow, that is amazing. I
Um,
wish they would do something like that here, Caitlin. Yeah.
it's not done even really in America. It's really, I don't know if it's done I don't know other countries, but I know in
Mm,
America it's not even done. Um, so that I will say that I don't want to say privileged, but I am very thankful that that was
yeah.
available to me. So I started seeing a therapist, and it was the only time I could get because I still work Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. And so she had one slot open on Thursdays at 6 p.m. so I could
Yeah.
go on my way home, on my commute home, go to therapy, go the rest of my way home. And I started there. Um, and it was that was that was really, really hard.
Mm,
It was really, really hard. Um, it's just there's just no way around it. If anyone's been through therapy or thinking
mm.
about therapy, you have to, in order to get through it, there's no rush. That's not what I'm saying. But you
Yeah,
do end up, you have to talk about it.
you do.
Talking about it gives your power back.
Mm,
It helps you get your voice back,
mm,
So you have to talk about it. So
yeah.
that's how I started.
Yeah. So, um, so you've gone through, you've started to seek help through your workplace, which is just amazing. Here they have what is called a mental health care plan, but you only get 6 sessions. Um, and that's through the government. Of course, if you want to go through privatized, that costs a lot of money. And some places have, rebates available, but it's not very much at all. And I suppose the disadvantage, and I'm sure that you will agree, hearing it from, I suppose, this point as well, is when you are someone who reaches that place, because it takes a lot of courage to start to seek help and say, this has really affected me and I need to start talking about it. And so, you go off and you do this and you speak to your GP and you say, I'm going to, and you might not be detailed. And I myself have been through this, and I, like you, Caitlin, have seen many since a child. I've been, in and out of psychologists, etc. And it's only once I started to reach a capacity where I was able to kind of utilize, my own tools, etc. But still now, I've started seeing a counselor again, actually.
Mm,
And so you go and you have this vulnerability, you seek the help, and then you get these 6 sessions. Now, the issue with it, and I mean, once they're used up, I believe that you can apply again, but there's only so often that you can get them. And 6 sessions, number one is to build trust with someone, to build
mm,
the rapport with someone, to start to actually speak about it, and then to go through the different types of, CBD or cognitive behavioral therapy, all these different types of therapies. And then you get cut off, and it's like, well, your 6 sessions have expired and you have to go back to your GP. And obviously, there are ways to maneuver that. But there is more that needs to be done, very much so. And I think it's really universal, And then I was listening to a podcast the other day where these types of things that happen in third world countries. But what happens is, a lot of the time in third world countries, people are also so distracted by trying to survive economically or through war or whatever it is, that they
mm,
don't have time. They don't have, that capacity and that to kind of sit back and try to work through all this other stuff, never mind the other traumas that they're seeing every day, And so in each kind of universal, countries, mental health structures, etc., there are all of these different, disadvantages and advantages. So I'm definitely someone who advocates with you for this, to say that, we need these types of things that are happening. Um, the other thing I think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is when, now we have what is called, well, we've had it for a long time, but I've noticed that they've changed kind of the structure of it. So they're called peer workers, and they're assigned to go out. Obviously, over here we have rural mental health and other ones. And peer workers are assigned to go out and obviously help, have peers per se, whether they be adolescents, adults, etc. But what they look
mhm,
for is that you must have something very similar that you've been through, and then you kind of are able to connect with someone, and say to them, I feel where you're coming from. I think that when we
mm,
have, and please don't get me wrong, I think whoever gets into counseling, psychology, yourself, Caitlin, what you've been through and speaking out through your podcast, which I'm going to ask you about in a little while, there is more empowerment that comes from being through these things and being able to connect with someone and emotionally get that person. There's nothing worse, I think, than going to someone who's just done all the theoretical side but can't really empathize or understand
mm.
the other person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard, because it's not right. And I wish there were changes. I think people really need to see the value of mental health, and how if you can care for someone with mental health issues, you're going to prevent a lot of physical health
Mm,
issues. I know for me, it certainly did. You know, I had well, I don't think you ever stop being addicted to something, but I had a food addiction to food, because in my mind, if I put weight on my body, and this is just says something about society in general, that my abuser would find me less attractive, or that
yeah.
was in my, and also it was a way to stuff my feelings. And
Mm,
anyway, so my point is that it caused me to be pre-diabetic. I was well overweight. I just recently had knee replacement surgery at the end of October, and I'm
mm,
going to have my left knee replaced as well sometime this year because of carrying all that excess weight. All my life I was told I was big boned. I'm not. I actually was told by my orthopedic doctor that I have a petite frame, and it's not meant to hold all this extra weight
Mm.
that you're like adding like tons of weight onto your bones anyway. So it causes physical ailments as well, and people get headaches and all this. So physical health, absolutely, and there's sometimes people are born with illnesses, that chronic illnesses that they need to have care for, but mental health can lead to physical problems
Yeah.
as well. And it's not right that people have to suffer.
Mm.
People who want help sometimes can't get help, and medications are not cheap. I'm fortunate, like I said, I'm very, very fortunate, but not a lot of people are. And I really like to see that changed,
Yeah,
you
you
know.
you and me both. Yeah, it would be fantastic if we could somehow, like all band together and start something and yeah, put that out and just keep going for it. And I mean it makes sense because it's kind of, I always use the example many times, and I've referred to this because to me it just I sit and I think to myself, if you go through a terrible accident, you have stages that you have to go through in order to get better. And part of that is rehabilitation. You
Mm-hmm.
need to go out and get rehabilitated. But it's as if, I think what I found anyway, repeatedly, is it's like because we can't see the injury, it's as if it's treated lesser,
Mm.
you know.
Well, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So, growing up again, Gen X, the age that I grew up in, a lot of, I had my mother say to me once, "Snap out of it. You're better than this."
Yeah.
For schoolwork, it was teachers would say, she just, if she would apply herself or whatever. But, I was really struggling back then. And, it can be easy for some reason to dismiss those with mental health issues with trauma as, well, just get over it, or, it's a
Yeah.
long time ago, and, or, I did this and I'm okay. I mean, everyone's different.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
I've
yeah.
heard that a lot in my life too. Yeah, I went through similar, or, my parent was the same and I'm just fine, or, um, and the fact of the matter is that it's not quite so, because often, and I'm not so much talking about, well, in this type of abuse, yes, definitely, but in other types, like violence and that sort of thing, and being brought up in that type of dynamic. And it's funny how those same parents will do the same thing with their children, and it just carries on and
Mm,
carries on because they think, well, I'm fine, when really. And when you talk about, everyone has an addiction, for me, it's smoking, when I'm still really triggered. So I used to be a full-on cigarette smoker, and I've been able to get to a point now where when it's only kind of when I'm extremely triggered that I can still turn to that. And so it's something that I'm forever working on, and forever trying
mm,
to get better from, because really we know, and we come to an awareness, I think, and it sounds like you have, Caitlin, where you start to understand where you turn and how you turn to these things to kind of help you. um,
mm.
I would like to know, because you are someone who's been, and like we say, survivor, but what really took me, when you and I were chatting a little bit and hearing a little bit of your story when you were preparing to come on here, was what you've started from this and how you've used it to propel an empowerment, for yourself, so that this does not define you.
Right.
Would you mind, yeah, just telling us a bit more about what you do, um, and how life looks for you now, Caitlin?
You know, um, this is what I say, and I, this may sound corny to some people, but it's the truth for me anyway, is
Mm.
that even in my darkest depths of despair, I mean, I was suicidal, and I was thinking, planning ways, the best way to end my life, and thinking that nobody would miss me. that people would move on with their lives. But even in my darkest hour, when I was at my very lowest point, I hung on to hope. I clung to it.
mm,
I hold on to hope that it's going to get better. And
mm,
I know this is anyone who's going through this right now and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel and you think it's never going to end. I can tell you that it does get better. It
mm,
does. But look at me. This I've been dealing with this for over 50 years, and it just took me till I was, in my late 40s, early 50s before I finally cope with this. So I dug myself deep out of the depths of despair, and I knew that out of this, my goal was to help others like me
mm,
and help parents whose kids are going through this.
mm,
And that's part of the reason why I created the Healing Light. So it's the Healing Light NH because the Healing Light is like all over the place. So I had to add the NH at the end, but that's okay.
yeah.
So I am a spiritual healer and I do delve into the psychic realm. I do a tarot card, I read tarot cards. I do Reiki, which is not pagan or spirit or religious. It's just a healing energy. Um, but my main goal with that is to help people heal.
Mm,
I can't, healing starts with from within. It has to come
yeah.
from you. Nobody is going to make you heal.
Mm,
You have to do the work. You have to put the hard work in. And when I say it's hard, it's hard. It's gotten better, believe it or not. It's
mm,
not as hard. But I wanted to help people heal. So um, Reiki is all about energy. We have points in our bodies called chakras, and they can be misaligned and out of balance and out of whack. So I'm I'm like a vessel, like if you look at it like a hollow bone, and
mm,
everyone has this healing energy inside of them, but I tune into it and I help bring it out, so people can heal. And the messages that I give with my oracle cards and my tarot cards, it's all about energy and how energy um, can be turned from a negative to a positive and all
mhm.
that. And so I wanted to help people heal, and
Yeah.
that's what I did. It's evolved a lot, and I made a decision um, about 6 months ago that I was no longer going to make it a business.
Mm,
Yes, it's the Healing Light, and I call myself the owner because I started it. However, to me, it was getting away from my mission of helping people. So I closed down my website. I keep my social media open because I use it a lot to do my videos and my messages, but I don't have set rates anymore. For
mm,
Reiki, I don't charge for Reiki. To me, it's just my feeling as a practitioner that people have Reiki energy inside of them, and
mm,
I'm facilitating that to help heal. So how I don't feel ethically that I should charge for that.
yeah.
And with readings, I mean, if people want to, some people like they'll insist on giving you something. So I tell people, look, if you want to, whatever you want to donate, that's fine. It's not you're not obligated to. Whatever you find that's within your budget and reasonable. And if you can't, that's fine too. Take a couple
Mm,
cans of food to your local food pantry or your local
yeah.
shelter. Take a bag of dog food to an animal shelter. Do something to pay it
Mm,
forward. Um, and I just feel that the world needs more healing and more love and caring and
yeah.
compassion. That does not go out of style. And
Yeah.
it's not hokey or weird, or
Mm,
it's genuine.
mm, yeah.
And I look at where I am now, I have a full-time, highly, highly stressful job as a project manager,
Yeah.
but I work full-time. I manage a household. I take care of our animals, and my wife recently had life-saving surgery and was in surgery for 9 hours with with a blocked colon, and
Yeah.
then they believe she has a recurrence of her ovarian cancer. So she has been recovering at home in bed for the past month,
Mm.
and I've been caring for her. Her sister has been a huge help as well. Her sister has been helping as well. But I think without the ther the therapy and the psychiatric meds and my determination to make a
Mm.
better life, I don't think I could do it. I really don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
you know what?
that's where
I
I am.
completely, yeah, connect
And I
and
say,
understand
what's that saying that I rose from the
this.
ashes like the phoenix.
Yeah.
I just did everything I could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To try and, yeah, that's right. Reach the surface
Yeah,
of some type of,
yeah.
yeah, normality per se to your life. Although
And
I
I
always
just,
think
if I
it's
can
normal.
help even one person,
Yeah.
if,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And there is no, you know what I love about,
And I just
speaking
want
to
to say to
others.
people out there who have gone through this trauma, you are worth it. You are a worthy person. Do
Mm,
not think that you're not.
mm, yeah. That's it. Don't let it take your worth. I completely agree,
No, go ahead.
Caitlin. No, I was just going to say, also what I love about doing this and speaking to
Um,
people and
I don't know.
having people like yourself.
I just want people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. On is that you show that you don't
You
have to
know,
be behind.
secrets. I learned this from a friend of mine who was in AA.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sorry, Karen, Caitlin, I think we have a bit of a
Secrets will
delay.
kill you.
Mm.
Secrets will kill you. Oh, oops. Okay.
No, no, no. Carry on. Carry on. Yeah.
All right. Let's try again. Oh, I was just
You
gonna
go.
say that the the best thing you can do is reclaim your voice.
Mm.
Reclaim your voice because secrets are what people count on. And I'm done. I'm done being quiet about it. It almost killed me. It almost killed me.
Mm.
Um, I I could have died. Um, and I speaking of smoking, I did smoke cigarettes. Gosh, I think I started when I was about 12. Again, the 80s.
Yeah.
But I used cigarettes to medicate,
Mm.
and in 2021 I had a pulmonary embolism and I almost died. And the doctor told me that if I had waited any longer to get to the emergency room, I would have died. And that's because of the smoking makes your blood thicker, so it
Mm.
formed clots, and I had clots in my leg that traveled up to my lungs.
Wow.
And yeah, that's when I was like, okay,
Yeah.
we're done.
Yeah. The things that give you the wake up call. Um, but Caitlin, I wanted to say to you, what I love about this conversation is you really reinstate the fact that there are many things that contribute to whether you want to call it a healing journey, whether you want to call it, making life your own, and as you say, reclaiming your power. People have different ways of referring. I'm always on about healing because I think that healing does not happen overnight. It's something that takes time, and you're forever, working through stuff depending on levels of trauma. And there are things that can take your soul And I say that not with a victim mindset. I say that with a survivor mindset. But there are things that truly can make you question life itself, and really fall to your knees in desperation of wondering how this ends or where you go next. But
Mm.
hearing stories such as yourself, and you reinstating, the therapy, the letting people go that are no good for you, the different spiritual and holistic approaches, and then working, and all of these different things, you have risen above. And anyone else that is going through similar or questioning, you can always rise above. It does not need to define your story. I also just want to quickly ask you how your wife is doing, Caitlin. I know that we spoke about, this is venturing a bit off, but I do just need to ask, because I know you've been going through a lot, and the fact that you're here to talk when you've had all of this other stuff going on, thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, it's not easy. And there's a lot of pain that comes with her type of surgery. And then she had, I don't know how this happened, but she was hemorrhaging inside, so I had to rush her to the emergency room. I was probably about a week or two after her surgery. There's a lot of pain. It's a lot of changes. She rests a lot. She sleeps a lot, but um, she has just been, God, I just don't even know. She has just been amazing through this. I mean, we both had our moments, I'm not gonna lie, but um, she asked, how do I beat this? And I said, well, you beat it before. You'll beat it again. We'll beat it together. Um, and I said, you're gonna get better if I have anything to do about it. So again, it's just something where you pull up from
Yeah.
wherever you've got. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying I am perfect. I've had a couple meltdowns, I'm not gonna lie. It
Yeah.
just can become so overwhelming that just what's happened when you take your life from going, moving along, and then boom, this
Yeah.
happens. Nobody can prepare you for that.
No.
We just
I
take
mean,
it day by day.
yeah.
When I was suffering on my own before I met Shelley, sometimes you have to, people, you got to know this too. There may be times that you have to take it hour by hour, half an hour by half an hour. I mean, I can remember being at work saying, okay, it's 1 o'clock. I just need to get through to 2 and then I'll be okay.
Mm.
Um, you get through somehow. You do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on
That
to
that's
that hope.
Yeah, that's right. But that is also fantastic advice. It doesn't even have to be day by day, even if it's that hour by hour. Yeah.
Mm,
I'm sending you so much love and well wishes, Caitlin. And
thank you. Right back at you.
thank you, and thank you so much for coming on today, joining me, and sharing your story. If you don't mind, Caitlin, just going on to the Trauma Network and just adding your podcast, and for anyone who would like
Yes.
to come in and listen, that would be absolutely fantastic. And if you have any parting words, please feel free. Yeah.
You know, I thought about this a lot, about what I want to say to other survivors is know that you're not alone.
Mm,
Know that there is help out there for you, and there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
mm,
Don't ever give up on yourself. Do not do that. You are
mm.
more than worth it. Do not give up on yourself. I know it's hard. I know. I mean, there are days. I have my moments. I am not completely healed. I don't know if I ever will be.
Yeah, sure.
Healing is not linear, it has all these bumps. But just know that once you get into it and start acknowledging it, dealing with it and recognizing its impact on your life, that it does get better. I
Yeah.
cannot stress that enough.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I'm there with you. And I say the same, Caitlin. It does get better. Thank you
And
so much, Kate.
oh yes, I wanted to say that in the United States, we
Mm.
have the crisis hotline. You just dial 988, or you can text help to 74141,
Yeah.
and a crisis counselor will be in contact with you. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
you too,
Thank
Caitlin.
you.
Have a good
All
night.
right. All right. You too. Bye
Stay in
bye.
touch. Bye.
I will. Bye bye.